But I did want to start off with something very sad. The case of a missing girl that actually happened around my area. Young girl goes missing, and the Bay Area mobilizes to try to find her.
Today we're looking into the case of Sierra LaMar, and the forensic evidence that was so clear and robust that it led to a conviction without authorities ever finding a body. Welcome back to the United States, folks. Our story today begins in the state of California. Found in the San Francisco Bay Area lies a small city named Fremont. Founded in the 1840s, the Fremont area proliferated during the Californian Gold Rush. And of course, many things have changed since then. Where Fremont once was nothing more than a post office with farmland for grapes, nursery plants and olives, it is now home to over 230,000 residents. You may know the city for its Bay Area rapid transport system, which ferries residents all over the region and into neighboring San Francisco. But Fremont is otherwise reasonably quiet with its reputation. In fact, there's not much to talk about.
Is Bart famous? Like, what? You may know Fremont for Bart? Really? That's Bay Area rapid transportation system, aka the bane of my fucking existence.
For grapes, nursery plants and olives. It is now home to over 230,000 residents. You may know the city for its Bay Area rapid transport system, which ferries residents all over the...
Imagine the subway but more ghetto and smaller.
But Fremont is otherwise reasonably quiet with its reputation. In fact, there's not much to talk about at all. While there's proof that mammoths lived here over 2 million years ago, Fremont is now home to a Tesla factory, which employs over 15,000 people. It also houses several historic American buildings, such as Niles Silent Film Museum, Shin Arboretum, and Mission San Jose Cemetery. To find more interesting facts about the area, as this sleepy city is known as San Francisco's quiet little brother. But in March of 2012...
If Fremont is San Francisco's quiet little brother, then what the fuck is Oakland? Are we their, like, loud ghetto cousin?
The family of four consisted of computer engineer and father Steve, mother Marlene, and their two daughters. Their youngest daughter Sierra was born on October the 19th, 1996, and her older sister Danielle was about 4 years her senior.
She's my brother's
Both
age.
girls grew up in a relatively comfortable environment. Like all families, they had their ups and downs. However, there was one very concerning detail behind closed doors. During their younger years, Danielle's and Sierra's father had acted inappropriately with one of their school friends during a sleepover. And after getting caught, Steve pleaded no contest to lewd acts with a minor.
Really,
Needless
dude?
to say, and as a result, he was imprisoned for 1 year. And the revelation understandably broke the family apart. Despite Steve's former convictions, Danielle and Sierra had a very good relationship with him, claiming he'd always been a caring and respectful father. Steve and Marlene, though, they were well and truly over, and soon after hearing the news, the two divorced. Soon after this, she found herself a new man. Both Sierra and Danielle attended their local high school, Washington High School, where they made plenty of friends and did relatively well in their studies. Sierra was described as a happy-go-lucky girl. She was fun-loving, energetic, big-hearted, and very popular at school. She enjoyed cheerleading and competitive dancing. Eventually, Marlene made the decision to move from Fremont to Morgan Hill, which is located around 40 miles or 60 kilometers southwest of the city. In 2011, she and her boyfriend Rick Gardner, along with Sierra, relocated to Morgan Hill. Rick was working in the construction industry, and although work was picking up, money was still relatively tight.
Yeah, because
the three of them moved into a rented ranch-style house on Paquito Hispana Court, a rural cul-de-sac surrounded by farm fields. Now, obviously, Sierra was quite upset to be moving away from her close friends and hobbies to a place where she knew no one.
Farmland.
And although she was quite popular at Washington High, the reception at Sobrato High School wasn't quite so welcoming. Nevertheless, as time passed, Sierra found her place in Sobrato High. She eventually made friends, became well-liked amongst other students, and even joined the cheerleading squad. On March the 11th, she called her father and sister, who were back in Fremont, to tell them of her progress. The conversation was generally happy. She talked about wanting to get her hair dyed the next time she went to Fremont, was excited about one of her upcoming school assignments, and told her sister all about her homework. Apparently, she was doing very well with her grades. With evening fast approaching, Sierra ended the call with Danielle and Steve shortly after dinner. With it being a Thursday, she had school the following day. The three of them amicably said goodbye for the night, expecting to talk again soon. However, very little did any of them know this would be the last time that Danielle and Steve spoke to Sierra.
Unfortunately. Man.
March the 16th, 2012. Back in Morgan Hill, it was a typical workday. The Gardner-LaMar household followed its everyday morning routine. Rick woke up to leave for work at around 6 AM, and shortly after this, Marlene came to kiss Sierra on the forehead before leaving for her own job too. It was now up to Sierra to get ready for school and lock up the house. Tweeting a friend at 6:29 AM, she put on her shoes and then headed out of the front door to get the bus. You see, Paquito Hispana Court was quite far out from Sobreto High School and the rest of Morgan Hill. Like many children across America, Sierra would have to walk down a rural road surrounded by farmland through Palm and Doherty avenues to catch the bus every morning. At 7:11 AM, while on the way, she texted a friend to ask if they could meet up before classes began. But only 4 minutes later, when her school bus arrived at 7:15 AM, Sierra was nowhere to be seen.
I talked to her, said goodbye, and gave her a hug, and things were good, and I told her I loved her.
Marlene LaMar had no idea her 15-year-old daughter Sierra didn't make it to school Friday until getting an email from Sobreto High School that evening. Alarming because Sierra usually walks to a school bus before dawn. But the bus driver saw no sign of her, and neither did her friends all day.
I can't believe that she would not contact her friends and let them know that she's okay and do this. She would never want us to go through all this pain.
Calling authorities, officers were dispatched to Paquito Hispana Court immediately. But with such a long time frame in which Sierra could have disappeared, investigators did not know where to start. They began with those closest to Sierra. Now, Sierra was generally a happy person, but it had only been a few months since her divorced mother had forced her to move away from home, leaving her former life and all of her old friends behind. She often joked and even seriously talked about running back to Fremont, and authorities took this as a sign that she had likely willingly run away on her own accord. Although officers were playing down the seriousness of Sierra's disappearance, other aspects were going in the total opposite direction.
Yeah, bro.
Not only did she remain silent, but all activity on her social media ceased to exist. Her phone was switched off, all calls went through to voicemail, and she never showed up at the front door. Understandably, Sierra's family and friends were petrified. And so, despite sluggish police efforts, the great search for Sierra LaMar officially began. And it all started on Sunday morning, 2 days after she'd vanished. While data forensics were busy analysing her phone's historical data, they realised that, in the middle of the night, it had given off one single electronic ping. The phone seemed to be switched on and then off again just a couple seconds later, and its coordinates were leading them to a field just a few blocks from Sierra's home. Come sunrise, a search team carefully combed through the fields where the phone had been pinged from, and after searching for only several minutes, they found it. Sierra's Samsung Galaxy had been located a stone's throw away from the road. Due to its distance, it was speculated that it must have been thrown from the road due to the physical damage that it had incurred. Investigators concluded that her phone had not been manually switched on that night. Instead, they believed that the rain had created a false charge signal and turned her phone on for a brief second. Now this was a very lucky coincidence. Authorities finding her phone holds great weighting to the end of the story, and it all happened due to a raindrop and a short circuit. With no footprints, tire track marks, or any other form of visual evidence, it was likely that her phone was thrown from a moving vehicle. And given the nature and circumstances of this case, that was very concerning news to officers. The following day came another gut-wrenching discovery. Tossed just outside a barn only 2 miles away from Sierra's home, a search team had discovered her backpack. The bag contained her schoolwork, inhaler, and money, therefore indicating that she had intended to go to school and was likely forced away from her own crucial possessions. Unfortunately, it just gets worse from here. Her bag also contained an entire set of clothing, likely that of what she was wearing on the morning she disappeared, and this included her jumper, trousers, socks, shoes, and even underwear. DNA analysis was conducted on her clothing, which came back with positive results. They found foreign DNA from a male on her trousers, indicating that it was likely that she had been assaulted. Sierra's name was talk of the town, and missing persons posters were erected all over the area. Sierra's parents also raised a $10,000 reward to anyone who could provide solid evidence. But despite their and the community's best efforts, nothing other than a golf ball and a flipper was found.
It's day 18 and still no sign of Sierra. But sheriff's investigators are not giving up. They're extending their search, canvassing new areas, looking and praying she will be found alive. Investigators have received hundreds of tips and information from the community, a driving force, they say, that's keeping this case alive. And as for the physical evidence, Sierra's clothing and cell phone, as well as the stainless steel handcuffs and used condoms that were found, are all still being analyzed for any connection to Sierra's whereabouts.
Unknown to the public at the time, but investigators were actually closing in on a potential suspect. On March 28th, 12 days after Sierra's disappearance, analysis concluded that the DNA found on her trousers belonged to a man living in the local area. A total of 57 registered sex offenders lived in the Morgan Hill zip code, and all of them were investigated and compared against the DNA sample. For the record, Sierra's father approached authorities about his previous crimes as soon as she went missing, and he was ruled out of being a potential suspect almost immediately.
Damn.
But one of those men who was not ruled out was a local man named Antolin Garcia Torres. The 21-year-old man first entered the spotlight after a positive DNA match between himself and Sierra's trousers. Antolin lived about 7 miles away from Sierra's home, living in Maple Leaf RV Park with his mother, then pregnant wife and daughter. And Antolin's history is concerning at best. He had a very difficult childhood, full of neglect and violence. His father was an abusive alcoholic who had threatened to kill him and his mother at least once. That was before he was eventually arrested and put in prison for abusing an underage relative. Sadly, this awful characteristic found its way from Antolin's father to Antolin himself. In 2009, he was arrested for having sex with a minor. And although these charges were eventually dropped, his DNA had been collected as a result. Whether Sierra was alive or not, nobody knew. But at least in this moment of time, Antolin was the most likely to know. As a result, officers took several measures to monitor his movements and methods of communication. His phone was tapped, his vehicle was discreetly bugged with a GPS tracker, and 2 undercover officers moved into an RV across the road from his home. Investigators also began to look through surveillance.
Could you imagine the undercover officers having to move it? They're like, all right, we're going to have to go undercover as gay lovers. Like, what? Can't we just be brothers or something? You're black and I'm white, Tom. This isn't going to work. We're going to have to be gay lovers. And it's like, we can't be. And then, like, somebody comes over. He's just like, hi, I'm Terry and this is Bruce. Instantly, he has to be like, hi, I'm Bruce. And it's like, fuck. God damn it, Tom. Now we're forever the fucking gay dudes across the street. It's like, yeah, bruh, that's how we gonna have to live it. And so he doesn't have any fucking. The guy's not even like. He's like, oh, it's just the 2 queers living next door. I don't care about that. I'm not worried about that. Let alone, all while they're like setting up FBI shit. I don't know. That's what I would do. I would definitely. We're not gonna go undercover as gay. Okay, I'll think of something else. Hi, I'm Tom. This is Bruce, my partner. He's like, oh, fuck. Now he has to do a gay voice, too. Oh, so funny.
Footage found around Antolin's local area, and after realizing that the RV park had cameras at the front entrance, they analyzed this footage on the day of her disappearance to see if Antolin had left or returned to his home.
Did he?
Lo and behold, they discovered that Antolin had left the RV park in his red Volkswagen Jetta at 7 AM on the very morning that she had disappeared. And with a distance of only 7 miles between his and Sierra's home, his travelling time would perfectly match the time frame in which Sierra could have been abducted. Although Antolin had left his home at the usual time he would go to work, shift records from his employer Safeway confirmed that he did not work on March the 16th.
No, he did not.
And after further discussion with his management, they learned of some more bad news. It turns out that just 3 years prior, 3 failed abductions had taken place in the very same car park of this Safeway. And although these attempts were thankfully unsuccessful, no one was ever formally identified or arrested. Only one of these attempted abductions had any form of evidence left behind, which was a taser that the perpetrator had dropped. Found on one of its batteries was a fingerprint. However, it was only a partial fingerprint and could only be matched in a direct one-to-one comparison. The idea was tempting, and after comparing Antolin's fingerprints to those found on the taser, came a very shocking revelation. Antolin was in fact their suspect.
Yep, shocking.
Investigators now had a very likely suspect.
Yeah,
his DNA was found on Sierra's trousers. He was confirmed to be out when she disappeared, and he has former connections with abductions. This was enough to bring him in for questioning, and for his car to be impounded for DNA analysis. And although Antolin was smug in his interview, test results were quite damning. He was actually very dismissive during his interrogation. He claimed that he had no idea who Sierra was, that he was confident they would find nothing, and that he went fishing on the day she disappeared. But Antolin did not finish his interview without giving a very bizarre confession. You see, Antolin confessed that he had a rather nasty habit of strangling the snake while driving, and would throw the unlucky tissue out of the window. Not only this, but on the very morning that Sierra disappeared, he claimed to have thrown out a used tissue in the exact area her bag was found. Now,
I just want to let you know, officer, you're not going to find a goddamn thing on me, because I'm an innocent man. In fact, fuck all you racist assholes for bringing an innocent Mexican in here. Okay? Side note, I was kind of in that area jacking off and throwing tissues out the window. You know, in case you find anything. Maybe. Just want to. But fuck all you guys. I'm innocent, right? So, you're not going to find anything. Except for possibly my semen. But if you do, you'll just, I'll explain to the jury happily that I jack off and throw tissues out the window. Yeah, bruh, you going to fucking prison, all right? You're going to prison, and what they're going to do to you, ooh, man, I don't want to watch, but I'm glad that the idea, like, look, okay, I believe that, like, murders can be rehabilitated, thieves especially, like, most crimes can be rehabilitated. I don't think sex crimes can be rehabilitated, okay? I think it's either a chop off your balls or chop off your fucking head type situation when it comes to sex crimes. And I'm being honest with you, okay? Like, especially of those with children, right? The people that are just like, well, I'm just attracted to children. It's like, all right, well, then we're just going to chop your balls off. Because, you know what I'm saying? Because that's all that's going to happen. Because you saying that just means that, oh, you're just using that as an excuse, right? Chop your balls off or chop your head off. It's like there's two options, right? I'm not talking about the head of the dick. I'm talking about the head, right? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But, like, I don't think those can be rehabilitated or even, you know, to that level. Like, if you fucking are attracted to children, like, yeah, bruh. All you guys should be put in a fucking swimming pool full of fucking gasoline and set on fire.
On May the 21st, 2012, Antolin Garcia Torres was officially arrested in connection to the disappearance of Sierra LaMar outside of his work in a Safeway car park. This was due to several clear connections between Sierra and Antolin's car. DNA analysis had concluded that her DNA was on the internal door handle of the car's rear door. Additionally, some rope found inside Antolin's car contained a strand of Sierra's hair, and fibers from his car seats matched that found on Sierra's clothing. This means that, without a doubt, she had been inside his vehicle at least at one point in time.
Yep.
But despite his arrest, there was still one massive problem with the situation.
Where's the fucking body?
Although it may have seemed obvious what happened to her, Sierra's body had still not been found. And with no body or confirmed death, could they really charge Antolin with first-degree murder? The answer was yes. And in fact, on May 19th, 2014, Santa Clara County District Attorney Jeff Rossen announced that he would be seeking the death penalty against Antolin. By now, Antolin had already pleaded not guilty to murdering Sierra, but with so much evidence suggesting right up to the finish line that he had, there was little to no wiggle room. On January the 30th, 2017, and after being postponed, Antolin's trial officially began. The trial was both long and burdensome for everyone involved. Over 13 weeks of testimonies took place, with long arguments from both the prosecution and the defense. One part of the trial that I found interesting, but Antolin's defense team tried to argue that pesticide exposure from nearby fields during his childhood could have psychologically altered his cognitive abilities,
Bullshit.
and therefore this was not his
here.
fault. They also claimed that he should be disqualified from the death penalty.
because he had nothing to do with that toxic exposure, and under those circumstances, they're going to say that is something that he couldn't help, and that is a deficit that he faces as a young man that other people don't face. So this testimony from the expert is designed to go after his mental state and to say that he didn't have a normal childhood. And additionally, he was subjected to exposure to toxic chemicals, which could have affected his decision-making process and his brain function at a very organic level.
Okay, chopping your balls off takes away the reason they're sexually attracted, right? The reason why you're attracted to the, like, ass and titties and whatever kind of woman you're attracted to is your balls. Your balls are what tells your dick to get hard, in my mind, But yeah, bro, you chop off the balls, I mean, you can't get hard anymore. Pretty sure. Maybe just take the dick and balls. Just chop it all off. Fuck it. Chop it all off, just to be safe.
In a last-ditch effort...
Leave him a little thing to pee out of. Yeah, but do they still have sex after that? Are they still sexually attracted to stuff? Or do they take hormones to replace the balls being, you know what I mean? Like, they have to take some type of hormones. Smitty's like, yeah, chop the dick and balls, just to be safe.
On Tuesday, May the 9th, 2017, the jury found Antolin Garcia Torres guilty of the first-degree murder of Sierra LaMar. Although Sierra's body has never been found, and there is no explicit confirmation that she is dead, the evidence was stacked so high against Antolin that he had no way to walk away from his actions. Directly addressing him in court, Sierra's mother stared at him right in the eye and said, "I find it incomprehensible to commit a heinous, violent crime. You caused great pain to our family and to yours. You have robbed Sierra of what God had planned for her, and you can choose to make a choice and repent and tell us where she is."
Alright. Technically, this is what God had planned for her, if you want to be like, I don't know. No man has a hand in the works of God, so technically this is what God had planned for her. I don't want to say that this is what had... Like, you should be quiet. I'm going to be quiet. Just be quiet.
I think about her all of the time, and what's been taken from me as a mother.
Sucks.
It's just hard to believe that this happened. I still wake up every day thinking it's a dream, but it's reality. Antolin remained stoic and unmoving as several of Sierra's relatives read letters to him and the courtroom. And both then, and even now, he still maintains his innocence over Sierra.
So here's how fucked up God's plan can be, right? Like, and this is just a thought coming, right? So what if this whole murder of Sierra LaMar happened, so some random person like the guy that we're watching now can make a video about it so that some other random person can watch that video and be inspired to do something else that's, you know, a part of God's plan, right? Like, what if that's the whole, well, you're going to die so somebody can watch a video, so somebody can make a video, or like, yeah, you're going to get really good at making videos so that you can find this random death, make a video about it, and then one other person is going to watch that video. Yeah, after you make that video, technically your work in my plan is done. Goodbye. But, like, when you make that video, though, it's going to be fire. And that other person's going to watch it, and then that's going to inspire him to do this. And it's like what? I don't know. That's the whole, like, you get really, your head starts to hurt thinking about stuff like this, you know?
Sierra's murder. This means that he has never disclosed where Sierra's body may be, and tragically, outside of the evidence provided, no one knows what actually happened to her on the day that she disappeared. Although he was spared the death penalty, Antolin was officially sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, which, if you think about it, is quite the achievement, considering no body has ever been found. Since his conviction, Antolin has remained almost entirely silent, and Antolin said, "I hold fast to my innocence, and I'm not going to talk about the case. I have no trust in the news. There is a lot of selective reporting which paints a picture not always true. I too believe that every person has a right to have their voice heard, but unfortunately, those days are long gone." Now honestly, I'm not sure why Antolin still claims his innocence. With his DNA on Sierra's belongings, Sierra's DNA in his car, his former criminal record, and a perfect timeline, this is all just clear as day. Clear as day that he was involved in Sierra's disappearance, at least. On June the 19th, 2012, 3 months after she had disappeared, fake photos were shared online displaying Sierra's Facebook account posting several updates to say that she was being held captive and needed help. This was later proven to be fake, but honestly, what kind of sick person does this?
Wow, bro.
There was a legitimate post of dark irony, however. In the evening before Sierra disappeared, she retweeted a tweet to say, "Going to school tomorrow, I'd rather kill myself." According to some organisers, the attempt to find Sierra was the longest continuous search for an individual in US history. Over the space of 3 years, volunteers conducted more than 1,100 searches in a 15-mile radius. And between them, they combined a total of 50,000 man-hours of search time. They faced hot summer days, rainy autumn evenings, and cold winter nights, scanning local woods, ravines, rivers and thickets for any clue about the missing young woman. Even to this day, volunteers still look in desperate hope for Sierra LaMar. And although most of them accept that Sierra is most likely dead, they still wish to bring her home and her family the closure they deserve. To this day, no one knows where Sierra's body may be, but hopefully one day the LaMar family will find closure. If you believe you have any information that may help authorities discover her location, then
we don't. Bruh. Whew. That was a rough one, and that was one from my own personal neck of the woods. I remember Sierra LaMar's name. I don't remember the actual story, and I never went to go look for her or anything like that. But yeah, man, that was something else.